So back in April, the Trump administration promised that there would be a reform of the way that we approach Cuba. You'll remember during the Obama administration, there was a movement to try to reestablish diplomatic relations with Cuba, and that included loosening the restrictions for travel to Cuba. Well, today is the day promised. An executive order enacted this morning will greatly restrict Americans' ability to travel to Cuba, and it really will have a big effect on the cruising industry. So I'm referencing a lot of information from a USA Today article. I will link that in the description below. I've read several. There's a lot of sources out there reporting on the executive order. And since the executive order was released this morning, the State Department has come back with some clarifying statements. So I'll see if I can make it as concise as possible. The big goal today for the administration was to severely limit Americans' ability to travel to Cuba. The idea is that Cuba is a destabilizing force in the Western Hemisphere, a stronghold for communism, and a supporter of communism in other countries like Venezuela and Nicaragua. Just to sum up, the State Department feels like the tourism dollars that are going into Cuba is funding a regime that runs contrary to American interest, and therefore Americans should not support that activity. This is in direct contrast to what occurred in the Obama administration, where the philosophy was to encourage relationships with Cuba in a hope that that would loosen communism's hold on the island. And thousands of people did cruise to Cuba after 2014 based on those new rules, primarily using an exemption called the people-to-people exemption, where as long as you went to the island and spent time with a Cuban native, whether that was through a tour company, through a private engagement with a local, you were exempt from any kind of travel ban. The people-to-people exemption is gone, and very specifically, the State Department said no more cruise ships to Cuba. Now, I'm not sure what the response from the cruise lines will be. This news just dropped about 11 a.m., but there was a clarification that came out from the State Department after the original announcement that said anybody that had an existing transaction for Cuba travel would be able to do that transaction, would be able to do that travel. So reading between the lines there, it could possibly mean that cruises are already booked. If you've already paid on some sort of cruise, maybe those cruises will be able to cruise to Cuba. But it seems pretty clear that starting on Thursday, there will be no more allowed booking of travel to Cuba, no more allowed booking of cruises to Cuba for U.S. citizens. It's a big change, and there is more to come. I will keep you updated as I get more information. Just real quick, if you can, in the comments, do you have travel booked to Cuba? What have you heard from the cruise line? I would be interested in that information. Thanks for stopping by for the update. Consider subscribing with notifications on. That way you'll get the updates as they come out. This is Tony with Lido, Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.